Sorry for the camera angle. It's not the best because, well, it's right in my face and all that sort of thing. I've got to run to the airport, so I thought I'd do a quick video on something that cropped up fairly recently in a video I saw on Facebook. It was by the comedian reporter Jonathan Pye. I don't know his full comedic background, but he generally does news reports and then in the bits between does essentially the real news, what it actually means. The report he was doing was about the new Scottish hate crime law, which has only recently come into force. This has been challenged by people who indeed have been accused of hate crimes, including J.K. Rowling. I don't know the exact wording of the hate crime law, but it does involve things essentially that we can say in our own homes, on the internet, whatever. Essentially, if someone hears about it and takes offence, they can reasonably report it. Sounds ridiculous. Sounds like the authorities are barging in on our lives. I can understand it for domestic terrorism, or even domestic violence. But when you consider that people get offended at many things, what can be considered offence is a bit of a loose cannon, making this law the ammunition for that cannon. And actually dangerous ammunition as well. Because people are now getting convicted for having opinions. Doesn't matter if they're right or wrong, that's just the way it goes. Now, some people, including Neil deGrasse Tyson, don't like the idea of debate at all. But I have a strange feeling they will actually like this law, because it puts debate out the window and leaves us in a situation which Jonathan Pye actually said could lead to people walking on eggshells or getting arrested for thinking the wrong thing. Weirdly enough, that made me think of one thing: the Spanish Inquisition. It's not quite the same thing, but in essence, it may as well be. Back in the day, where the Catholic Church had a great deal of power, they were very happy to investigate people, arrest them, and if some stories are true, torture them to get a confession, and then execute them. You might say that's not going to happen today. Really? What's the difference between a seemingly good thing trying to defend those people who feel that way compared to a religious regime? Well, here's the thing that I think we need to remember, something that many people completely ignore. I'm going to say this very clearly, first of all. I stand by trans people. I stand by people who aren't sure of their gender. I stand by people who want to transition from one gender to another. And I stand by people who want to have their pronouns used. Thing is though, those people that will stand by them militantly to the point where they're going to say that if you're religious, then you're an idiot because you believe in something that can't be pinned down, doesn't have any evidence for it, and you just have a feeling about it. How do we measure gender? Sex? Different, I'm willing to accept that. Gender? That's something different. And just as nebulous as what our concept of God might be. And yet, we are making societal shifts to essentially give people who want their nebulous feelings political weight, if you will, essentially trying to be in the position where religion is now, but currently is being stamped down. Sooner or later, they're going to be on even footing and they'll be punching each other. But one's on the up, the other's on the down. I would like to point out right now that it's incredibly similar. Our feelings about God, our experiences of God and religion and spirituality and stuff like that, they're highly subjective. And it's the same with the trans movement. It's because of our acceptance of nebulous personal beliefs, personal feelings, personal experiences, that trans people even have the right to stand up and say, this is what we are, and we can say that now. And I'm all for that. But why should we do it for that and not also religion? That is textbook hypocrisy. As some people might put it, one rule for one person and one rule for another. Something hated by everyone. So, whilst I'm very aware Jonathan Pye could have been exaggerating the whole situation for comedic effect, it still is something worthwhile considering. How soon before the Rainbow Inquisition comes knocking on the door of someone's house who simply said that I saw someone that clearly was a man go into the female bathroom when my daughter went in there. That's a genuine concern. They may not have meant it maliciously, they may not have meant it going against the entire LGBTQ community. They may not have meant it in terms of transgender people in general. Just that one situation, and they were concerned. I myself might see a horse overreacting, getting really frisky around children. And I would always move children aside, move my niece and nephew back instantly if I could. Do I think horses are inherently dangerous and no one should be anywhere near them, least of all small children? No. Do I think that horses should be removed from society? No. In fact, if my niece was interested in riding horses, I would take her to her lessons. I would help her groom the horse. I would be her sidewalker if I needed to. Just because I pick up my niece and move her out the way of a dangerous horse doesn't mean I don't want her to have anything to do with horses at all. Likewise, that person could be concerned, and rightly so, if a rather butch-looking trans woman enters the female bathroom immediately after her daughter, suspiciously close, in fact. I fully agree with that. I fully understand their concern. That does not mean they are against trans people. They are just concerned for their children. There are people that will say there are only very few cases out there. Yes. But unfortunately, that does not remove the risk. Just because it's a small risk doesn't mean it's not there. We have to remember that. Many people say that the chance of a headlong crash from overtaking someone is very small, but that does not mean overtaking a line of cars in a stupid manner is going to be sensible. No. And with the increase of people being able to express themselves as trans, and with the acceptance and with any level of acceptance of trans people using the female bathroom, that could very well increase the likelihood someone gaining the system will take the opportunity. As a wise man once said, criminals do not obey the law. And he was talking about swords. If the sword ban isn't going to stop stabbings with knives, people accepting trans people entering any bathroom of their choice isn't going to make the risk to young children go away. And at the moment we start being policed about that, our fears, our views getting questioned by people who could be very militant about it, then we're just starting to roll over and accept things that some of us don't ever experience, and yet has now become very much a part of our lives, whether we want it to be or not. I'll say it again. I'll stand by the trans movement. I'll defend LGBTQ plus people. But we cannot enforce laws that basically say if you say something that could very well offend someone, you can be arrested. Threats, fighting words, acts of violence and terrorism, arrest them, certainly. But please do not report people because they're just expressing a view that you find slightly offensive. If I was even half as militant as some of those people seem to be, I have a very strange feeling swords would have been banned in Britain long ago because I would have carved up half the bullies in my secondary school. Having long hair as a teenager doesn't get you many friends. Especially when half of them, according to a Facebook poll, are trying to kill you. So, remember, keep an open mind and an open heart. Because what you feel isn't necessarily what other people feel. Just because you don't experience something doesn't mean other people don't. And at the end of the day, we should look back on history and see this as the time we saw a problem and stopped it, rather than look back and see how we went from one extreme to another extreme and returned to the same place. Thank you, and God be with you.